Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Virginia City Council Chambers. This is a special City Council meeting. There is one item on the agenda, and that is to review the proposed 2023 budget. It is going to be the first of several meetings that we're going to have with respect to this budget. We have invited the department heads today in case they had any questions regarding how the budget is being proposed, and take a look at their individual budgets and how it affects their budgets for 2023. Thanks for those who are attending today in the audience. With respect to the schedule itself, we'd like to stick primarily to the budget itself and as the only subject of discussion today, and then any ancillary financial issues can be incorporated into this budget as well. So I'm going to ask Sherry, our Finance Director, to please give us a recap of the proposed 2023 budget. We'll go to the department heads and any questions we have from the council. Sherry?
Thank you, Mayor, Council. Thank you for coming to the budget proposed. This one is the fourth draft, so me and Britt have been working on it for some time, and we're getting it down to where everybody wants to know. It's looking like $228,000 is what we would need to levy for in addition to what's already been levied. So that is a 4.5% increase over last year. I'm just going to give you first starters. There is a typo. It should have been 2023 budget up there. Oh, sorry. But here's a listing of VITA. There will be a special levy for that, and that's based on the market value, which did go up slightly. So that's $97,000, which would be directly allocated to VITA, which you'll see that on the second page for expenses. The general fund overall is projected to have $19,280,875. That would also include a 2023A bond for equipment. And so we have already proposed that in the budget. That's still going to take a separate council approval for bonding if we choose to do that. You will also see overall the transfer in from reserves to general fund will be around $666,000 to help offset the expenses. The second page is the general fund expenses. And this is where we'll go through departments. And I believe we want to start with the, which is the special revenue fund, which is on the third page. And under our enterprises, we'll start with the Iron Trail Motors Event Center. Hi, Brian, Jim. Thank you.
Good morning. Good morning.
So we have proposed a revenue for a special revenue of 2.4 million, almost 2.5, and your expenses. So go for it.
Good morning, Brian, and good morning, Jim. Welcome.
Good morning.
So any questions, comments, concerns regarding this, the budget for the Iron Trail Motors Event Center?
I think it's a solid budget moving forward this next year. If you remember back to the pro forma that I so desperately hate because I don't think it's completely accurate, it showed us still operating at a deficit in this budget year. That is what we are currently budgeted for, you will see in the budget, but we are budgeted for less of a deficit next year as compared to what we were budgeted for this year. So we are continuing our goal of trending and our actual trending towards revenue neutral for the Iron Trail Motors Event Center.
Thank you. And the anticipated, the projections for this is to be revenue neutral in what period of time?
Year 5.
Year 5. Thank you. Okay, thank you. Anything else, Jim, from you? Anything else from anyone else? Anything else from you, Brian? Okay, first we'll go lights on. Councilor Baraboo.
Brian, just got to ask you a question. Maybe this is for Sherry, too. The sales tax that is paying for this building, is that ahead, behind, even? Where is that dollars right now? I believe I've heard that it's ahead.
I will let Sherry answer that as she has those facts and figures much more readily available.
Oh, yeah, this is a good answer. Yes, we are ahead. So that's why you see in the levy, we don't have to levy for it because we have enough. I'm just going to tell you that in July sales was our top sales. It was over $300,000 in sales tax. Now, we cannot use that for the operation. That goes
No,
towards
I
the-
understand that, Sherry. That's where it's going to go next. That we still have deficit basically is in the operations portion, correct, Brian, for the 5 years?
Yes, that levy pays off the
building.
construction for the building. Our goal is for the building to generate the revenue that it needs for the operation of the building and continued upkeep of the building.
Correct. And if I may, Mayor?
Sherry?
Right now, we have 1.5 sitting in reserves that belongs to that 2020 bond, and it's still making marginal interest. But we also have a $600,000 Minnesota deed grant that until we get the certificate of occupancy, we cannot tap, and that's still sitting down at the state.
Yeah, Sherry, one more question, quick.
Counselor Bearable.
Sherry, what interest rate are you getting on the extra that we have? That's, imagine, into some type of certificate or something right now with our,
It is around 2%. We cannot legally go over what the bond rate was. We can't make money on the bond, if you know what I mean.
okay, so you can't get to the 2.5 that's out there right now? Okay, that's what I want to know. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Counselor Bearable. Anyone else? Counselor Johnson?
Thank you, Mayor. I'm curious about where we are on the utilities versus what we budgeted, since we had no idea what to budget. Do we know what that looks like as we've gone through almost a year compared to what we thought would be?
I did send you folks out, the council out, the budget, and there should have been an Iron Trail Motors budget. You might still have it in your,
What I'm saying is, where are we at this year paying what we've paid
yeah,
out?
it'll show you year-to-date. It's June's financial budget. It'll show you what we've paid and what we budgeted.
Would you have that handy, or?
No, I don't. I emailed it out to you last week.
Okay, I'll look for that.
It's in
And
the
then,
financials.
Okay, thank you.
because there's a $600,000 sitting out there, what does it look like for getting that certificate of occupancy? What's the
Mr. Cole?
timeframe?
There's still some work to be done. We're still waiting on Kraus Anderson to finish several different things. We know that the month of August, that they did have their 11-month walkthrough, which was scheduled for the project, and I've not seen the results of what those reports say, but we do know that we brought up multiple issues, and they're still solving multiple issues there on property.
Okay, I appreciate that, thank you.
So there are a number of punch list items that need to be taken care of before we go to the certificate of occupancy.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you very much. Counselor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. I do have one question. I know that pro forma was very lopsided, basically, compared to the cost of the building, but where are we at in terms of the deficit then incrementally? I mean, if we're going out to year 5, where are we at now, year 2?
I don't have the budget in front of me, but we had budgeted was it a $600,000 loss for this coming year?
Sherry?
I will have to look.
Okay.
While Sherry looks, I wanted to, if I may,
Please.
Mayor, address Councilor Johnson's questions regarding utilities. Utilities for this year, our current budget, we had budgeted $250,000 for utilities. Currently, we have used $213,000, so we've used 85% of our budget at this point. Moving forward, we have adjusted that utility number to reflect what we now know, because we didn't know what we didn't know doing the budget last year. So essentially, we had taken the miners' memorial budget and just put that in for last year. Considering that this building is almost double the size of the miners' building, and we are not at double the utility cost, and we are running ICE, which is the most expensive utility operation in the building, 11 months out of the year. These numbers are very good for the utilities for the building.
Thank you, Brian. You have that information, Sherry?
It's in
Thank you.
your budget. You'll see that the proposed comparison, 23 and 22, the current year, is budgeted at $403,000 in deficit.
And the anticipated deficit was around 600,000, but you've made an adjustment to what the anticipated deficit is.
Correct.
Thank you, Sherry.
Thank you for pointing out where that is on the sheet.
Counselor Paulson, please continue.
I was trying to find it. And then just one other quick question then, since you mentioned that. What I'm seeing on the sheet here is the budget is $250,000 for utilities for '23. Should that be different?
We will up it. That's why we're here. This is
Okay.
our working session here.
Okay, so, and where are you saying that that should be at?
413?
I would have to do some math.
Sorry.
So, let me pull out my handy calculator.
And while Brian's,
I'd say 368.
Thank you, Brian.
thank you. Thank you, Brian. Okay, anything else? Any questions, comments with respect to the Iron Trail Motors Event Center? Counselor Freely.
So my real concern is the staffing needs, and I'm wondering where you're at in terms of your comfortability with the current staffing, and does this current budget or the '23 budget reflect those potential needs?
This current budget reflects all the staff that has been approved by council. We're not proposing adding on any more full-time staff for this next year, so it includes the office staff, it includes the utility workers, the custodial staff, and the budgeted needs for the part-time recreation assistants, which we still, a year into the project, have not filled all of those positions.
Which you will need with this busy winter season, I'm assuming.
Well, remember last year, we went through an entire hockey season working at 20% of our staffing level for part-times staff,
people on
and we
staff.
made it. We did not meet our expectations as far as what we wanted to provide. Prime example, there were many games that we wanted 2 concession stands open. We only had 1 concession stand open, therefore the guests in our building had a very long line. But thanks to how we've laid out the concession stands and the quality of employees that we've hired, that line moved very quickly. Even though it's stretched throughout the lobby, it was about a 10-minute line. But we want to correct that because we don't want anybody to miss 10 minutes of a hockey game, because if you're like me, that's when they score.
So additional staff is necessary, and it's been budgeted accordingly.
Correct.
Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Freely. Okay, any other questions, comments for the Iron Trail Motors Event Center? Counselor Paulson.
Thank you, and I'm sorry to kind of pick apart things, but I have a couple questions. So under the figure skating program, it's a negative 50,000, current budget year was 50,000, and then there's a $0 amount under the 23 portion, and then it says on the right column, it's a $50,000 difference. Can you explain what that?
Sure. If you, we haven't jumped ahead to park or rec.
I'm sorry, maybe I should wait.
No,
Should
no,
I just
no,
wait?
it's a good question. It's good, because it was in there, and I put it in there, and they said, oh, no, it belongs in the recreation department. So if you flip over to
Okay.
tab under Park and Rec,
So it's
you'll
accounted
see
for
I
there.
budgeted 60,000
Okay.
as
thank you.
revenue.
Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Paulson. Anyone else? Jim, anything? Any
No.
questions, concerns, comments you'd like to make with respect to the budget request?
I think it's moving in the right direction, and the revenue's good, and expenses are a little out, we still have to button down expenses better there, no question.
Brian, anything?
No. One of the questions that I was expecting you to be asking is why our budget line for renting equipment is so high. So I will answer that question because I was prepared for that zinger of a question. When we rent equipment, it's things like renting the pipe and drape and renting those things. That money is money that we are automatically recapturing, because when you come in and tell us, I want all this pipe and drape and all of this extra stuff that we don't have, it ends up being a pass-through on your bill. So we're billing you for what it's costing us to do that. And we need to have that in the budget, because just yesterday we received word that a tiny conference that we hosted this past year is coming back again this next year. So we will be hosting the SME conference again this next year and have to do pipe and drape throughout the entire facility for that. So that's why it's very important. I'll try to stop talking with my hands.
Yeah, that's a reimbursable expenditures, which we anticipate that's going to be the case, so thank you. Anyone else? Okay. Brian, Jim, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Brian does have Park and Recreation also.
Well, we might as well start that right now. Thank you, Park and
I'll
Rec.
just stay right here.
All right, let's go.
And this is where, Councilor Paulson, you will see the $50,000 for the figure skating put into the Park and Rec budget, where it was taken out of the Iron Trail Motors Event Center budget. We've done that because historically it has always been, figure skating has always been a Parks and Rec program. Previously, it was under the minors budget, but now that the Iron Trail Motors is a different type of fund, it just makes more accounting sense to us to put it under the Park and Rec budget.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I know that if you go through each one of these individual budgets, with whether it's the Antrim Wars Event Center or Park and Rec budget, you know, the large expenditures incurred by each individual department is the cost for labor, salary, benefits, insurance costs, and those kind of things are significant. And so there's a smaller percentage of funds that are available in order to operate the facilities. And so we try to minimize the cost as best we can. However, you know, I want to point out that that is a significant cost to each individual department. So thank you for that. Anybody else have any questions for Brian with respect to the Park and Rec budget? I do have one question, and so the employees that you have working there, and I know that you delegate services, and with respect to that, are there any additional duties and responsibilities that you're going to incur that didn't occur in 2022? Are there certain assigned duties and responsibilities through Park and Rec that they may have to take on in 2023 that they did not have in 2022 but would have to absorb in the 2023 budget?
Nothing cemented in stone, but there's always the possibility of new things that could be added. If Friends of the Greenhouse, for example, if Friends of the Greenhouse were to decide to no longer want to be Friends of the Greenhouse and we had to take over the maintenance of plants, that would fall on our Park and Rec crews. I still would love to get us to the point in winter that we are able to groom some cross-country ski trails and snowshoe trails throughout our parks. We don't have the equipment, so we've been blessed with some volunteers that have done that in years past, but I would love to get to the point that we are doing that on a regular basis. We're not there yet, but if somebody were to donate us equipment, then that may be something that we end up taking on.
See me after the budget meeting, and I may have a contact for you on a partnership will cost you no money.
Those are the best partnerships.
Very good, thank you. Thank you, Brian. Anything else? Park and Rec will go to the council. Councilor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. Okay, so I'm looking on the, I guess it would be page, well, it's like page 3 in the packet, but it's labeled page 1. And then it does say skating program, account 101.34725, and it says 60,000 in there. So is there a $10,000 expected budget increase for '23?
Yes, I believe so. I think Brian just probably had misspoke.
Yeah.
That's what was on their worksheet.
This past year, it was $50,000.
And the
With
new budget is-
skating year-round, figure skating is generating about $60,000 of revenue.
Okay, and then down below that, it also says skating program 13,000. Is that a different program?
Expenditures for we pay for the figure skating.
Oh, okay, so that's coaching.
Any other, we do a few things, advertisement for their,
The cost for the figure skating show, supplies, those type things.
Oh, okay, it says it right there, skating program. Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you, Councilor Paulson. Anyone else? Thank you, Brian.
Thank you.
Appreciate it very much. Next agenda item.
Brett, who would you like to have? Ha.
want one of the department heads
Oh,
to
about the
volunteer?
police department. Okay.
Police Department.
We're jumping all over. I try to make a
That's
content.
okay.
Mayor, council, good morning.
Morning, Chief.
Good to see everybody.
You too as well. Well.
Here we go.
I'm going to ask one question for you. Well, is there anything in this budget that's been discussed with staff that is concern to you, or something that may negate your ability to operate at your full potential?
Well, the big thing, I know with Chief Mattson, she apologizes she couldn't be here today, but for 2023, we're really looking to upgrade our Watchguard camera system. That's the body cameras that, we're on about year 5 of using the current cameras that we have. And as good as the cameras have been, it's like any electronic device. They tend to start failing after a while. And that's what we've seen is a lot of our cameras having error codes and things like that. And the Watchguard company was bought out by Motorola. So they have completely, of course, changed everything, and no longer can you even get parts for the old cameras, which Roger was doing an awesome job of at least getting those up and running for us, but we can't do that anymore. So we're kind of at the end life on the cameras we currently have, so we are looking to upgrade all of the body cameras throughout the whole PD. With that, we'll also be upgrading the server for that, which you'd see as one of the expenditures here. And then we are going to need new redaction software in which Bruce handles all of the redaction, in other words, blurring out of the faces of the videos of people that aren't directly involved in the incident or juveniles before it gets sent over to the county attorneys. So,
And you can see the expense for the capital on the second page. If you go to the police tab, first page shows the top part is revenue, and then police department, second page shows the capital outlay. This is where we're hoping for an equipment bond to cover those, the Watchguard cameras, the server, and we also have leases in there. They're already in there as expenses.
yeah, we do the leases on our radios and our tasers. We found, especially like with the tasers, that prior to when we purchased those outright, if the tasers failed, it was extremely expensive for us to then pay for a brand new taser. So we found with the lease program, if something goes wrong with it, it's easy. We ship it off to them. They ship us a brand new one. It actually has saved us some money in the long run, especially with those new tasers that we have, which have worked out wonderfully for our officers.
And as your vehicle replacement schedule, the same thing comes with your equipment replacement schedule, whether it's the taser, whether it's the body camera. And so my question to you is that as we look at upgrading the body cams, which are, when I looked at one a while back, they're woefully antiquated and do need to be repaired. And there's new kind of technology that comes in that prevents the error codes from occurring on a regular basis, and also provides more clear, concise, and effective and efficient recording, as the officers are responding to their calls for service. So when we look at those things, and then you look at the data storage, so with the new body cameras, it's a long for my question, but here's the question. So is it more cost-effective, less cost-effective, or there's no change in the cost associated with the data storage of these new body cameras?
It'll be more cost-effective, however, we do see that changing probably in about 5 years. And that's where Chief Mattson wants to get the new server now, because unfortunately, Motorola, being Motorola, just like Apple or Samsung or anybody else, eventually they're going to push us to where all of our videos will go up into cloud storage. That will become extremely expensive for us, because then we're going to have to pay per device to be able to store all of that body camera footage. So at least now we'll have the stuff in-house, and we won't be paying that, which I'm certainly going to be a monthly charge on whatever it is that's being sent up to the cloud. So for now, this is a cost-saving measure for us.
Leasing the server or purchasing the server?
That'll be purchasing that.
Very good, thank you very much.
Yep.
Councilor Paulson.
And I was going to say real quick,
please.
Mayor, you mentioned the cameras, so these are our current ones. And again, they've worked out well, but some of the really neat upgrades that they've made, this one has an in-house battery. You can't remove it, so you have to charge the whole unit. The new ones have removable batteries, so if an officer's in the middle of their shift or if they're working overtime and all of a sudden their battery's going dead, it's just like our radios where we can swap them out real quick. One of the other neat things that somebody my height really likes, so these ones currently have where you have to adjust the camera manually. The new ones automatically detect a person's face and moves it for you. So I won't have that problem where all my videos have the person's head cut off anymore. So, there's a lot of really neat things. The other really cool thing is it's a much wider angle view on the lens. So we all know what those fisheye cameras, they tend to look distorted out on the edges. Well, the cameras have that, except for now they have technology that takes that view and then squares everything up and makes everything on the edges crystal clear for us, so you still get a good view on the camera. So a lot of really neat technology that'll help us along the way as well.
Hence the need for an upgrade.
Absolutely, Mayor.
Councilor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. So I just had a question, Chad, on the vehicle replacement schedule. It was 0 last year, now it's 0 this year. Is that because we're doing leases, or can you?
We have those 2 vehicles that are still coming that we wound up having to get last year. So we're hoping to see them before winter rolls around, maybe about the time we get our garage finally fixed up to where we can park them in there. But yes, we do have those 2 vehicles coming. Now, I know Chief Mattson is planning for 2024, again, where we're looking at 2 new vehicles again after that.
Okay.
So we have 2 that are on the way. When they get here, who knows? Because those were ordered a long time ago.
Right.
So,
And then which budgetary cycle were those allocated in?
They were actually allocated in this year, and we were going to lease them, and we ended up buying them.
yeah.
That's what I remember.
The lease is just all, with how crazy this world got and the availability of vehicles, and it's stuff we've all seen it on different aspects of our lives, but it's crazy.
Okay, so that being said, then, there isn't an anticipation for the need for another vehicle
We're sure hoping not.
budget cycle? Because if we are doing the capital equipment
Yeah, that's
bond,
where we put all the cameras and,
Server and
Yeah.
everything else. Yep.
so, yeah, hopefully.
so.
But we do have a 10-year capital outlay, and I believe it's not next year, but the year after, there's squads.
She's pretty much looking at every other year,
Other
2
year?
more squads.
Okay.
That's kind of the cycle we're trying to stay on.
Okay.
Barring squads getting burned down in garage fires and things like that.
Okay. thank
The
you.
unforeseen things,
Thank you.
Counselor.
Ma'am?
Sherry.
I do want to say a thank you to the generous donations that we received last year for Shop with a Cop. What was it, around 13,000, I believe?
Yep, just shy of that. Yep.
And as you can see, I had way budget under. But do really appreciate the citizens and everybody that donated it. It really helps.
Fire Hall for all they do with their Stuff the Ambulance campaign, you bet. So, and Lieutenant Swenson has been out there already, even though it was July. That's when he started preparing for our next Shop with a Cop. So he's been hot on it. So yeah, absolutely. So.
Okay, so with respect to the vehicle replacement schedules, when you talk about leases opposed to purchase, some of the questions that came up with the citizens last year, not this year, but just to have you answer that question. we lease our investigator cars, we purchase our patrol cars because of the equipment, the extensive use, the frequency of having to replace the vehicles as opposed to the investigator cars. Easier to lease those than to lease these other squad cars, because it's hard to get a lease that's compatible.
Yeah.
Right, it's very expensive, so thank you for that.
Absolutely.
Counselor Bearable.
Thanks for the update on all this, but I have a question. When we look at these cameras, whether it be for a capital lease or we just outright purchase them, if Motorola takes a look at this, are you covered with any changes they make within the time where they may have to upgrade some of their software? Is that going to be an additional expense, or is that part of the process? I know all these companies work, they want to
All right.
shop you, so we need to try to get them to put that in our contract, so we
Well,
can upgrade.
And I know Counselor Johnson's always quick to point out our whole city camera system and how, I think we had some hard lessons learned from that whole debacle, right? And that's what Chief Mattson has been on top of, and why she kind of waited out as long as we could, so that way this is kind of a new cycle for Motorola with these new cameras rolling out, so we'll be covered during that time frame. Like I said, though, we are looking about 5 years, I'm guessing we're gonna have to do the cloud storage, so, yeah, the way of the world.
And part of these leases, of course, when you lease for a period of time, any changes or adjustments that are made is automatically included in that lease as replacement, so that we have to do with our other equipment, we do it with this one as well. So thank you for that. Thank you, Councilor Bearable. Anything else for the police department? Councilor Freedy.
Is your personnel roster currently filled, or are we still anticipating additional?
We're getting there, so we're hoping on the 12th, another new officer will start. We currently still have the 2 that are on FTO and have been doing wonderful. So we'll get them off of FTO in about another little over a month. With that other new officer starting, we are looking to probably unfortunately lose one other officer that we've been anticipating since the beginning of the year coming. So that'll still leave us 2 officers short technically. So, but if we can fill those either by the end of the year or beginning of the new year, I think we'd be sitting quite well, so.
Sherry, does the budget reflect that need then?
Yes, I've budgeted full staff.
Thank you.
And obviously barring, LELS contracts and things like that, those are kind of those unforeseen things right now.
And the availability of personnel.
Yeah,
See,
absolutely.
the colleges have been, we'll talk about that later. So thank you, Chief.
You bet.
Anybody else have anything else for Assistant Chief Nicola on the police budget? Councilor Johnson.
Just one thing, I'm looking at Community Relations Office, and we only budget 5,000 for that, and just knowing what John does and the outreach, as we move forward, if there's any more that we can find money somewhere else to help with that, because he makes that 5,000 into 50,000
Yes.
easily with his contacts, but if there's anything we can do to help support him financially moving forward, I'd like to see that.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you. Okay, anything else for Assistant Chief Nicola on the police budget? Seeing none, thank you, Chief.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you,
Appreciate it.
Council.
All right, you bet. Okay, as they say in baseball, next batter. Jim, you ready? Mr. Rosvit from, okay, you're still contemplating your next move? Bill? From, what's it called? No, I always say engineering, but
Community
code,
development.
Community development and permitting.
code development and permitting. Bill?
Good morning, Mayor and councilors. Thank you for having us. Do you have
Thanks
any
for coming.
questions?
Well, we would ask you first, anything in this budget that is of concern to you or something that you'd like to see? I know you've been working diligently with Sherry and Britt on this and have come to this stage of the budgeting process.
Yes, I believe the way our budget is set up, we're ready for next year in case we implement the rental registration as far as salaries and probable vehicle and small hand tools and other things that they may need.
So in this budget, you're anticipating, in maybe January of 2023, if things go well, we'll be looking at implementing the property or the rental code ordinance. And part of that is, that's budgeted for whatever you need in order to accomplish the goals and objectives of that ordinance.
Yes.
Thank you. Counselor Johnson?
Is that the vehicle, there's 45,000 in capital outlay, is that?
That's the vehicle.
Correct.
And we had discussed previously at the previous council meeting that we are putting an electric car plug-in in the garage because they're anticipating getting an electric car for this inspector.
Perfect, thank you.
Yeah, and part of that process, and speaking to some of the other mayors prior to the next mayor's conference coming up, that I asked about, our vehicles, like our parking monitor and the vehicle here for a new code official. And they said it's imperative they have a vehicle that is clearly marked with the city's logo and what the purpose of that visit is, particularly when it comes to renter registration and code enforcement.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, Councilor Caribou.
I have a question about the proposal for an electric vehicle. There are no good studies out right now on cold weather conditions that we get up here and all of this. We're finding out that electric vehicles are not towing what they're designed to tow. There have been studies out now that they don't even go to half of what they're designed for, and they say they'll go. Have we seen any studies in this cold country on electric vehicles? I have an angst about that up here, because I don't think they're going to work in the cold country.
And that's not something we need to decide today. When we get to that point of bringing forward the vehicle discussion, we'll bring that to you.
Okay.
I do know the state, I think by 2026 or
I
7.
don't care
will be
what they're,
all-
yeah,
all
I don't care
electric.
what they're doing, but they're not going to be efficient. That's where I'm going.
Right,
From all the studies I'm seeing on cold weather, they're not going to be efficient.
Right.
Well, we do have a budget of $45,000 for a vehicle, and we'll determine, what that is as we move forward. But it's in the budget for $45,000, which will cover the cost hopefully associated with whether it's a combustible engine or electric, and we'll figure that out. Anything else, Bill?
Councilor Baraboo, we are looking at a hybrid. It would be an all-wheel drive, smaller vehicle. Naturally, in the winter, like you say, I'm not anticipating it going far on the battery, but with the hybrid, we can still move.
I'll stand corrected, Mayor. I have no problem with the hybrids because they've been proven successful already, so.
Okay, thank you. Anything else before we go to Jody? Councilor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. So on that capital outlay, and it's stated other, that's for a vehicle. And will that be included with the capital
Equipment bond.
bond, equipment bond?
Correct.
Okay, and then so how is that reflected? How does that carry over to all the list of things compiled that we will be bonding for? Is there like an overall
Yeah.
list?
There should have been, in the stuff that Pam emailed out, there should have been a 10-year capital outlay, and everything in that column for 2023.
I think I have that.
And I can get you guys printed copies. It's very large. It's a very large document. That does state in there all the items that we want to put into the equipment bond for
Okay,
next
and
year.
will that come forward?
Yes.
Before we approve this budget?
Yeah, we'd have to have a public, yes, it was in the email the other day, and before we approve the budget, we will have that for
Okay,
you to approve as well, because you'll have to
Okay.
approve the 10-year capital outlay also when you approve the budget.
thank you.
Yeah, and I think as it's not part of this packet, but last week, Pam sent out the 10-year capital outlay that we have, so we have that. So we should all have that. Take a look at it when you have an opportunity. Thank you. Bill, anything else?
That's it for us.
Short and sweet, thank you very much. Jody, are you available? I'm sorry, Bill, just step here for me. I missed Councilor Beyondich. I'm sorry, Councilor Beyondich.
Thank you. When we talk more about that rental code ordinance, that will determine the cost coverage for what is needed for the inspections. And when we talk about a vehicle, that vehicle will be used within the city of Virginia limits, correct?
Correct.
So are there vehicles that are older that could be repurposed or used for that?
I'd like to hold that answer till Jim Rosvick comes up and he explains the condition of our vehicles at this moment in the city.
And I'm saying any
Yeah.
city vehicle.
No.
Okay, and the
We
other
took a
thing
very long
is,
break from getting vehicles for quite a few years, and so what we're using right now is some very old vehicles in some really odd places, and it's time to start doing some updating.
And are we anticipating a set amount for revenue from the, once that's passed and the inspections are done, is that revenue going to cover the cost of what it's costing us to employ and have vehicles for this person?
Correct, yes. Yep, in that budget, on the community development permitting budget sheet, the very bottom line under revenue is property rental inspection fee. We're estimating $80,450.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Beyondich. Okay, anybody else for Bill? Seeing none, thank you, Bill, very much, appreciate it.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Jody, are you ready? Come forward. Jody Grabanowski, our library director, welcome.
Good morning, everyone.
Very good. Jody, any issues, questions, comments, concerns, or anything you'd like to disseminate with respect to the budget as proposed today?
No, I think we are pretty much on track where we want to be for '23. So we've been working with some of our other budgets and just kind of making sure that we are meeting the needs of our patrons that come in the library and the ones that use everything online.
Yeah, excellent, thank you. Any questions for Jody, our library director? Councilor Paulson.
Thank you. So under the heating, cooling upgrades, and then the computer upgrades, carpet, and security system, I did find the 10-year outlay, thank you. And so it's in there for $125,000. Didn't we just do carpet though, right? Is this carpet in a different location?
The carpet is, remember, was a 3-year plan because we didn't want to do all of it at once. So
Okay.
this, we did part of it in '22. We will do part of it again in '23, and we will finish in '24.
Thanks for clarifying that. And then is that enough? Have we gotten any bids for heating and cooling upgrades? Yes. And that's where those dollars are coming from?
Yes, but as we know, we are hoping they don't increase too dramatically next year, but that's what they
Okay.
are today.
All right, thank you, thank you.
I have one question. Other professional services, what would that entail?
So that's going to be things like some of the things that we do with unique management, which is who we use when our materials don't come back. So an example would be, so we go through this process, which we talked about 2 weeks ago. If somebody doesn't return something, we want our materials back. And so we go through this process and we pay them to do all of the phone calls. And if they don't return their stuff, then there's another process we go after that. So
Thank you.
that's
Thank
the
you.
main one.
Thank you very much. Councilor Johnson.
Thank you. The $2,000 in library fines, since we're fine-free, how does that equate?
That's going to be for the lost materials. I think we'd probably we'll have some renaming to do. So some of that will come back with items that don't get returned. That's what will be put back into, and that's where it will go.
Okay, and then there's no income for donations for library, but I want to make sure we point out that the significant financial impact that Friends of the Library has, not only financially, but in volunteer hours and making our programs work. And I think that's one of the things that gets lost, especially at the library, is we have our staff that coordinate everything, and then these people show up and give us thousands of dollars of hours worth of support, especially for the children's program.
Yeah, so last year the Friends did really well, or this year they did really well in their book sale. We don't have another one until '23, and we do get some donations. This year so far, we've had $3,000 worth of donations. So the Friends do, and they put it back into a lot of our programming. As you can see, our programming line is pretty low, mainly because the Friends support programming, and that's how they support the libraries. They put the money back into summer reading. If any of you did summer reading this year, some of the amazing programs. We've got authors coming in this fall. One of them is Legacy, which is through AOS in the state of Minnesota. But the next one in November is in coordination with the Friends group. So, and they will pay our author.
And they pay for accommodations and all kinds of stuff. So, I just want to point that out, that there's more to the library that's even just on this piece of paper because of that community
Yeah,
support.
so we are working on the Friends budget because they are on a different fiscal year. The fiscal year starts September 1st, so.
Thank you. And just a note, when some citizens ask, well, how come, we have this staff at the library, and how come we, our expenditure at the library is so significant, and I try to remind them, as you all do, and I'm sure staff does as well, is that there's a Minnesota statute. I'm going to take a real quick look at it here. Chapter 134.34 of the City of Virginia, we're required regarding the Minnesota Department of Education to allocate support for the library in the amount of $770,169. And we need to meet that obligation. We do meet that obligation. We're happy to meet that obligation, so we're required by law to do so. And it reflects on how the library is working and how important that is to our community and how much you and all the volunteers do. So thank you for that. Anybody else have any questions with respect to the library? Councilor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. One more quick question. I think this is mainly for Sherry. Under the medical insurance, there's a decrease in the budget from 135 to 129, like a $5,800 difference. Is that due to change in employees, or is that due to PEEP? Or
It changed in employees, retirees, also to, I don't know, are you looking at the retiree account?
no, I'm just looking at the medical insurance
Okay.
line.
Yeah,
item.
it's adjusted more to what the actual,
Okay.
and then I put in a 5% increase. And that, I've checked with other cities who are in PEEP, and that's been the average. I'm waiting for Sean to get back to me from Nova or PEEP on what our increase is, but
Decrease includes the increase?
yeah, does that make sense? No.
Okay, thanks, Sherry.
Thank you. Okay, anything else for Jody from our library director? Thank you, Jody, very much.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it. Okay, fire department. And ambulance. I should say EMS, public safety, i.e. fire EMS. We have Intern Chief Frederickson. Welcome.
Morning, everybody.
Good morning, sir. Think any questions, comments, or concerns or issues you'd like to disseminate to the council regarding the fire ambulance budget? I'm sure there's be a lot of questions with respect to that. So anything that you'd like to add or anything you'd like to provide before we start?
No, I think in the full context of where we were in May till now, I like where we are. Thank you, Sherry and Britt, for being patient with us, and Local 390 as well. Had a lot of good conversation on how we navigate out, so.
Well, thank you, Chief. So looking for some questions or comments, and I see Councilor Johnson's light on, so I just have one question, and I'll reserve that for later. Councilor Johnson.
I've noticed in most of the other departments, the budgeting for fuel has gone up, and yours has remained consistent. Do we need to increase that budget, or was it already adjusted? It's 65 for fuel, petroleum, and lubricants, and the other ones it's just called liquid fuel. So I just want to make sure we don't run out of gas in November next year.
Valid concern, Counselor, no question. I was looking, maybe I'm thinking about the ambulance side. That one, we're under budget for around 50% through August, but.
Sherry?
Yes, I did look. When I do these budgets, not only do I look at last year's, but I look at our current usage and do an average for next year, and usually a little extra increase. And so far, the ambulance fuel was actually under, and I actually bumped up the fuel for the fire.
Thank you, Sherry.
Or, decreased it there too. So give or take, if there's, 3,000 from the fire that we need for, it's not gonna be that much.
Yeah, and when you budget for these things, you don't know, what the emergencies will bring the coming year. So rest assured, you won't run out of gas. We'll figure out a way to pay for that, right? So I do have one question, if I may, and I think it bodes the question that many of the members of the community are asking, and of course, that we're struggling with respect to reimbursements and all those things. But I just want to stick to the budget issue itself, and that's the Ambulance Special Revenue Fund, which is We got operating transfer in from the general fund, $483,977. Sherry, could you explain that, please?
That's what we're going to need to, so it isn't in such a negative. We will have to transfer that. That'll be part of the deficit.
So that's part of the deficit that we have in order to accomplish the goals and objectives of
Correct.
our fire EMS.
And as you see, we did lower the projected ambulance fees and revenue from 3.5 to 3.2. I still think that's a little high, but, we'll have to keep monitoring that.
So we are transferring in from the general fund, expected to be in 2022, 2023, $483,977.
That would be for the year 223.
Thank you very much. Counselor Paulson?
Thank you, Mayor. And I was going to address that, but I think if I may just go to regarding salaries, you've got the employees listed, and then you have the vacancies listed. Does that budget include all those vacancies being filled within the budget itself? So we've got vacancy firefighter on A crew, vacancy firefighter on B crew, and then single roles, there's 3 vacancies.
Sherry, I think there's an adjustment on the single roles. I think we asked for 12. We currently have 8.
And I will let the.
Okay,
I'll let
Chief,
the deputy-
would you please answer that question for Counselor Paulson?
Yes, we spoke part of that meeting with Local 390, Britt, Sherry, and myself, in the May, June era of trying to figure out how to best navigate out of that issue. We spoke to not putting a hiring freeze on those last 4 single role spots. At the time, there was no applicants, so it seemed like an easy maneuver, and it also, the cost savings. We feel that how we best get out of the spot we were in is just to get healthy. I mean, we're entering our 3rd pandemic winter here coming up soon. We've had 2 employees out for over a year. So many injuries, maternity, paternity leaves. We just need to get our people back.
Sure, so does the budget include
Those 4?
everything? Well, it says 3 on this sheet, but, okay, so if there's 4 vacancy on the single role, was that removed from the budget then, or were they added in?
Removed.
So it's just those 4, but not on the A crew of vacancy firefighter and on the B crew vacancy firefighter, those were included in the budget?
I actually have a master salaries and wages I will send to you. I just felt there was names on here, dates of hire.
Oh, sure. And
Confidential,
I don't need
but-
that. I just want to, all I'm asking is if it's
It does
covered
include everything that's vacant.
in the budget.
As if we were fully staffed to the level that we were going to.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. And then,
Like the police, we hope one day we'll get there. One day.
under the technical rescue expense, it went in '22 from 375,000 down to 2,000 budgetary for '23. Could you explain what that is and why we aren't budgeting for it?
The grant.
Urban Search and Rescue Team got a grant for $375,000 this year.
That was for the USAR?
Yes, that was for USAR, and they
Okay.
have not gotten word of the grant for next year yet, so we're just budgeting that we'll have minimal
Okay.
costs until we get the notification from the state what they're going to fund us at. They've committed to us verbally, they will fund
Right.
us, we just don't know.
Anticipating great news, but we don't have
So that
that
would be
yet.
a plus if it arrives?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep, yep.
And then, sorry, I don't mean to go on and on, but under capital outlay on other, so it's capital outlay vehicles, capital outlay office equipment, capital outlay other. We have a 12,000 was budgeted last year, $800,000 is budgeted for this year. And is that the ladder truck? Is that, what expense is that under other?
The 800,000, I don't see it, so I apologize.
So it's
Where is
on-
it?
Are you under the fire or ambulance?
Fire.
It'd be
Budget
fire.
worksheet fire.
There it is, I see it. Yes, we spoke about department need, and that is for a new rescue truck. That's replacing our rescue truck and engine 2. So it also it solves our new building issue back when we had to, just due to cost, we had to eliminate one of the fire apparatus bays. So this is kind of fixes that as well. But that truck is 2002. It'll be 21 years old next year.
Okay, so it's called a rescue truck?
Rescue pumper is what it will be.
Rescue pumper. And that estimated cost is 800,000?
Correct.
Okay. And then,
Point out, just anecdotally, the rescue truck is a truck that generates revenue. When a rescue truck goes out, we do invoice the parties that we service. So that is a revenue generating vehicle.
that's a good thing.
Correct. And within that total, just some other minor capability upgrades. It'll actually lower our ISO, which is a big deal as well.
So that's not going in, is that going into the bond
yeah.
request then? Okay. That along with the capital outlay equipment for the ambulance of 275,000.
Correct. And then, if I can ask Scott here. Scott, is there grants out there for the rescue?
Yes.
Okay.
Not currently. I check daily, but there's typically within a calendar year, a couple opportunities, yes.
Okay,
Now,
thank you.
oh, excuse me, Mayor, sorry.
Yeah,
about
please
that. And that's
go.
our plan for the ladder. Our ladder truck's a year newer. It's a 2003. It hasn't even been eligible. They don't even look at it till it's 20 years, excuse me. So I will be, in the next few years, looking for grant opportunities for ladder replacement.
And then my last comment is, obviously, you know, it's pretty concerning of the subsidization of the ambulance that we're transferring in from our general fund. And I really think it's time that we have some serious conversations. I mean, I know, you know, you're in the interim, you know, we kind of have to get that vacancy, get the hiring process done. But I think we need to have conversations, serious ones, with our county commissioners. I think that we need to seriously have a better buy-in from our county with the services that are being provided. And I want to fully support you and the department in maybe facilitating discussions or trying to get there. I know we've tried in the past, but to me, there needs to be a county buy-in. And then I don't know where you're at with the taxable fire district, but I really want to see conversations going forward with that. And that's a big burden on Virginia taxpayers to subsidize that amount. And I know we know Medicare is only going to reimburse, you know, X amount, whatever the percentage is. And I think when we had met before, was it 72% of our population is Medicare age? So I don't know, if you need anything or, you know, as you have conversations going forward, I want to help support you in bringing people together that can possibly make some changes for the positive. Thank you.
Appreciate those words and couldn't agree more.
In lack of those opportunities and grants or wherever we're going to continue to work with the other communities, we still have to budget. And we have to budget for what we currently have now, the service we currently need to provide. We don't know what other revenue streams are going to be, but we need to budget for what we need in order to move forward. And then if this budget is approved, then significant adjustments will have to be made, which will be a serious consequences for the community as well. So those are things that we all have to look at. So I have one quick question before to Council Johnson on the USAR team. Now, this USAR team that we started moving forward, you have now combined your USAR team with a statewide team, is that correct?
They got state designation, yes. in middle
Statewide
May.
designation.
Yep.
So aside from the potential grants you have that we're asking for, there's likely money going to be available in the future, and we're looking for you to look at that too, to offset those costs, not on the ambulance side, but on the fire side. So thank you for that. Thanks, Chief. Councilor Johnson.
Thank you. Can one of you just explain what the credit summary page is? What is this?
Sherry?
That is our actual year-to-date, so far, revenue that we have. It's not your accounts receivable. So we're not going to minus 40% off or 60% off. This is actual payments made for runs Right now, we're at 1.6 million that has come in as of August 19th.
Okay.
So if I average that, that means our revenue for this year is going to be 2.4, well below the 3.5.
Yep. And I appreciate that. It's got lots of stuff on it. I didn't know what it was. And so I didn't realize this is the actual money that we've gotten in the bank. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Counselor Johnson. Counselor Baraboo?
Yes, Mr. Frederickson, I got a quick question for you. The diversions that we've been getting, where are they sitting for this year? Are they increased again from, like Deer River, other places that have been, where the hospital, other places are diverting your possible percentage of runs in? Are they accurate, or is this a misnomer and not a misnomer, but a contrived, let's put it that way, I'm going to put it that way, diversion where they're trying to pick up revenue and stuff from these different facilities without really truly knowing what your process is through the department, and maybe we need to schedule some more meetings with our health partners.
Are you asking when the hospitals go on divert, or when we're unable to take a hospital request for
The
transport?
hospitals go on divert and then they cut you out. Basically, they cut you out of transfers. They bring in some of their own transfers from their own facilities when they do that.
Not a concern of mine. Pretty formal process on when a patient does need to be transported from our hospital in particular. They do call us first, so I have no suspicion that that's not being done, if that's what you're asking.
Why were we seeing more diverts over the last year?
The hospital actually announces that they're on divert? Is that what you're asking? I believe that's gone down considerably this calendar year. Last year, this was a hourly issue. Most of our in-town calls, we were transporting to Hibbing or further. But this year, it's gone down considerably. But it's a tough.
I was concerned about this year,
Yeah,
but I was alluding to last.
It's been fairly seldom in '22. But that being said, us not being under that roof, we don't often know those conditions on when they do it, when they don't. If it's it's a difficult one for me to keep an eye on. But
Okay.
it's improved mightily this year.
Okay, good. The other thing that people don't realize that may be watching this, because I think this is live, we don't have a choice of the 911 area that we're covered. That's state-based, correct?
I'm sorry, say that again?
The coverage area that we have is state-based, not,
Our public,
yeah.
service
I
area.
just
yeah.
want them to understand that
No.
we can't just cut out areas of coverage
Correct.
because it's all state-based.
Correct.
And they dictate that. We'd have to go through a huge formal process if we were to lessen our service, which I don't want to see happen. It means.
Me neither,
Well,
correct.
it means business for our hospital that's looking to expand here in the future, so.
Correct, and to Councilor Paulson's point, we're constantly going further beyond our own public service area to help struggling entities, so.
Okay, thank you. Counselor Beyondich?
Thank you. So when we talk about the capital outlay for everything, the bond that we will be going out for covers every department.
Plus the special revenue ambulance. And then I believe we even have golf in there, golf course.
And when we talk about the grant income, I think that's important to see on some of these sheets, because then if we're basing numbers on income from a grant that we don't really count on for the 2023 budget, and then we have to do cutting?
It is. If you look on your ambulance, it says other grants. 2023 has 0. Federal grants has 0. If you look at 22, we had budgeted 330,000.
So that's
So,
worked into, if we
it's already
don't receive
figured in.
any grant dollars, that's worked into that budget.
Yeah, if I know that we're not going to get grants in there, it doesn't go in.
Okay, All right. And then I think Counselor Paulson brought up an item that we've talked about at previous meetings, looking at the departments that are subsidized and at what cost they are. So that in the future, that is something I would like to have a discussion on. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Councilor Biondi. Sherry?
Most all of your general fund departments here on the second page are subsidized. It's going to come out of your levy because they belong in the general fund. The only ones that,
The way that the city is set up is, all cities are set up, is that your general fund is your levy. Your levy funds all your general fund departments, which is library, police, usually fire, city hall, administration, finance, things like recreation, cultural, those kind of things. Then you have special revenue funds. We have the Iron Trail Motors Event Center, the ambulance, Tennis for All, and I don't remember what the other one is. And those are SWADO funds that are not necessarily enterprise funds, so they don't necessarily are ever going to be revenue generating, but they kind of act like their own business. And we use that as a way for us to see easier the profit and loss for those funds. And then we have the enterprise funds, which are their own businesses, which do have profit and loss statements that we can run for them. That's sewer, the Clinic Capital lease, Washington Manor, golf course. So those are the three types of funds we have. And so anything that's under the general fund is always going to be funded by levy. I don't produce revenue as much as I'd like to. My office doesn't do that. That's not the function of my office. And it's not the function of the city clerk's office to do that either. It's just we are always funded by the general fund. The special revenue fund is anticipated that, and there's going to be times where we're going to have to do that. The enterprise fund, if we're having to fill that with general levy funds, then we need to look at upping rates responsible for the enterprise funds.
I think it's important to note that there was some significant discussion about the ambulance side of the budget a few years ago, and it was concerned about that being an enterprise fund or not. It was taken out of the enterprise fund and moved into another area, right? So, Sherry, could you give that?
Special revenue,
Yeah,
correct.
special revenue fund, so.
used to sit all in the general fund, which was huge. And then we went with the enterprise, and that didn't quite work, so we went with a special revenue.
Thank you, Sherry. Okay, I know there's a lot of work to do on the fire EMS side of the budget, but this is what we have available to us now. This is what's budgeted for now, for the lack of any other revenue that we can anticipate, or we don't have confirmation that we do have some grants coming in, but those will be sought as we move forward. And hopefully, as this budget process nears its end, you may have some good news for us with respect to potential funding sources other than coming out of our budget. We hope so. So thank you. Anything else for Chief Resurfacing with respect to the fire EMS budget? Seeing none, thank you very much, Chief Frederickson.
You're welcome. Thank you all.
Before Scott leaves, Chief Frederickson, we do have, Greenwood Township just emailed us again the other day. Greenwood Township is commissioning a study for EMS feasibility in the area. And we have committed that we will provide them any data they need, but we have a ton of data, of course, because being one of the larger ambulance services. So there is a glimmer of hope that there's something coming. It doesn't always have to be big Virginia taking over everything. It's nice to see a smaller grassroots department coming forward and saying, hey, there's something wrong. We need some help. Can you guys jump in and help us too? So glad to see that.
And that is encouraging, because I had a conversation with one of the Green Township board members on the other matter. We were at a different meeting, and said they're confident, or they're optimistic that they can move some. So thanks, Chief. Okay, anything else for Chief Frederickson? Thank you, Chief. Keep up the good work. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Just like
Thank
all
you.
the other department heads. You come before us with a budget request, it's going to be tough for us to narrow down the budget, and so this is like the first step in as we move forward. So thanks for coming in. Appreciate it. Okay, last but not least, our Public Works Director, Jim Rosvit. Jim, this is your first budget for us for the city of Virginia, but I know you have extensive experience with your previous employment, and so we look forward to your questions, comments, and concerns regarding the budget we've set out for the Department of Public Works. Anything you'd like to add, questions, comments, concerns, or statements you'd like to make before we go to the council?
Sure. Good morning, y'all.
Morning.
say a couple things I just want to bring up is a lot of things we're running into are surcharges, availability products, timeframes to get things. Everything we're trying to order is 2-3 years out, even to build a truck or purchase a truck. We've just dealt with surcharges for $16,800 on a truck. I've talked to the other vendors. They're doing the same thing, so it's something, we already have a signed purchase agreement on this, but it's something that they're throwing out to us, so I'll have to come back to you again and ask for more for that truck. That was budgeted for 24, I believe it was. Those are some of the issues we're running into. A lot of other things are product availability. When COVID hit, a lot of these businesses shut down or they eliminated some older items from their product lines. As you know, at our Public Works Department we've got a pretty old fleet there. To get parts for these old Monroe plows, Schmidt plows, the Sanders and that, the availability is not there anymore. We're gonna need some updates, and we're running with a lot of Band-Aids on things right now. Like I say, our building ourselves, our facility's in rough shape down there. Everything needs a lot of attention. Things in the city need a lot of attention. I haven't seen enough of, I've been here 9 months now, so I haven't seen enough of to see what we actually need. I know we need a lot of work and we need to get on a maintenance schedule and a equipment schedule and things like that. So we start budgeting for this because I think these expenses are going to get extremely large otherwise. That wastewater treatment plant, we just took down some pumps last week. They hadn't been down in 10 years. They're supposed to have an annual maintenance on them. We found a lot of things that we didn't care to see there. So there's going to be a lot of hidden costs coming up and a lot of things in the future. I just want to make you aware of that.
Thank you, Jim. So the question from all of us and the general public is, I know we have a staff, and the staff that we work on, we've got what we call a minimum staffing levels from my perspective. And so you try to do the very best you can based on the schedule of maintenance, whether it's roads and street repairs, whatever the case may be. You talked about the availability of products, and we're talking about the budget. So as we're budgeting in 2023 for the availability of product, and product not being equipment, product being bituminous, product being in class 5, product being steel, aluminum, whatever you need to do repair. And you did mention, and I want to mention the fact that you're not budgeting for any new buildings. And as we looked at, I know I did have a gentleman call me yesterday and say that the city of Virginia is empire building. And we're building our Intermortgage Event Center, we're building a new public safety building. So instead of empire building, they want to split this money into roads and streets. Of course, that bond money is not available for that, obviously, and we try to explain that to them. But I guess the question I'm getting to is that you have a public works garage, and I think we've all been down there. We've all been down in the primary office, your secondary equipment office for your mechanics, and then the back office too, where you store your winter equipment in the summer, and then you store some of your summer equipment in the winter. And I'm appalled by the conditions of those buildings. You work under squalor conditions, in my opinion. And so something's going to have to be done in the future. And I just want to point out, nothing's been budgeted for 2023 for that because of the significant needs that Public Works has in a wide range of areas that you've just described. So that being said, we'll move on to the rest of the council for additional information. Councilor Baraboo.
Jim, I've got a couple questions for you. Are you telling me we don't have a maintenance schedule for equipment? Because we put that together many, many years ago. I mean, are they not using it down there in the garage for oil changes, all that maintenance they look at? There's supposed to be a routine maintenance stuff that was set up many years ago. Is that not being used?
There is too.
Or does it need an upgrade? Because I'm concerned about it, because I'm on that council and we set that up maybe 10 years ago, Larry?
Yeah, could you answer that for him?
So if you're not using it, I'm really concerned about that. If our mechanics and the rest aren't, because they service the ambulances, Mr. Fredrickson, they're servicing your ambulances, right? that done on a routine basis now, like it should have been? Because we do it on a number of miles and stuff, and they're supposed to be computerized, and that was supposed to have been done a long time ago. Is that being used, Jim?
And there is routine maintenance on all of that stuff, but there is stuff that we are definitely behind on. There's a lot of stuff, and granted, I hate to say it, but it falls back to Public Works. We let it go at Public Works because we feel that ambulance needs to be out there, that fire truck needs to be out there, that squad car needs to be out there. So a lot of times, our stuff will get kicked to the curb to keep the rest of the fleet running. And what we've got into, the technology it's gone off the charts. They put the cart in front of the horse is what they did with everything nowadays. You can't keep up with the training, with the equipment you need. You know, every time you turn around, you need a specialty tool to do something in there. We just had to buy a new air conditioner because they changed the Freon again. You know, we're on a third type of Freon in 10 years. But,
So what you're telling me is then we need to look at some more specialized manpower down in that department that can do some of these things that either we have to farm out and add huge expenses, or we can do it ourselves. Is that what you're telling me? Because I see that, if I'm reading into this right, you need some more specialty people down there so they can do these things in a quicker manner and faster without having to go through and more training. Is that correct?
well, I think a lot of our problems is a lot of that equipment down there is 20 and 30 years old. You can only put so many Band-Aids on it. And, I mean, we've got guys that are rebuilding boxes and trucks and buckets and whatever type it might be. Granted, we are trying to go in the right way and update some of our equipment. We did go to some leases, which will help us out. They offer great warranties after the leases. I mean, they'll offer you a 5-year warranty for $7,000 on a $250,000 loader, which could be a radiator or something like that. But like, there is a lot of stuff down there that is 25 to 30 years
I
old.
understand that. So we haven't kept up with equipment, so we put not too long ago, we had a big equipment bond, and that included
2012.
12, yeah, and then we put out a big part of that for Public Works, if I remember correctly. So if we need to do that, because I'm not against these equipment bonds and stuff, not at all, because you have to do some of the things and get rid of the stuff that's not working. If we're spending lots of manpower and overtime fixing these things, that costs us money in the long run. But I'm concerned, I did not see this year, and it's not your fault, because you're new, but usually every spring we got a list of what your Public Works is gonna do throughout the summer months and stuff, then we'd compare it in the fall to see if, normally 90% of the stuff got done, but I haven't seen a list like that. Being chairman of Streets and Alleys, we used to get that every year. And we could compare it in the fall to see how much got done and what didn't. This year we had a lousy weather year and stuff, so you got way behind right off the bat this year in the spring. I'd like to see that happen again for '23. It's too late for now, for '23.
Absolutely. And one of the things we did run into, we had a lot of overtime this wintertime. So we've had a lot of
Plowing and stuff.
comp time, so we've had a lot of guys off this summer. So, and that's understandable, but
Do we give comp time, Britt? I thought we just
Correct.
paid them overtime.
You have to give comp time.
Law says we
You
have to.
Why is that? It'd be cheap.
Public
We're
employee
covered.
can
It's a
choose
law.
between a comp time or overtime.
I don't want to go back to this again. We did that many years ago where we had more people off than we had people working almost. And I'd rather pay them than have comp time, because you're taking manpower away from the projects you need to do.
That's the scheduling function of the department head. The department head needs to schedule staff according to what he needs for the day. And I trust that Jim doesn't have a problem with that most days.
no, and the thing you run into with, and I've dealt with it with my previous employer, we've tried it both ways, is if you don't work the policy the way you should, they're gonna come down on you and they're not gonna answer their phone in the wintertime. Not to say anything bad, but it does happen. And then you've got guys that don't wanna come to work when you need them to plow snow and that. And then you make that time available for them to be off during the summer months, so they are there maybe quite a bit extra time in the winter as opposed to the summer.
Can't you, that's a scheduling issue as far as I'm concerned. You schedule a person for a week at a time or whoever needs to be on call if there's a snowstorm. You don't have to call them to come out. Schedule them. Tell them they're on for this week. Maybe we'll have to deal with the union on this and pay a little bit of extra money. But if these guys are starting to pull tricks like that, that's a standard process.
Well, they haven't pulled that.
Okay.
They've been great about coming in for
But
snow.
I say, if that's the war happening, you can solve that problem by just scheduling them. I'm not chewing on you, Jim, because you're new, but I am chewing on you a little bit here. Because I think we need to function. They're doing good work, and I know part of your problem's been supplies. You can't get bituminous, you can't get certain things. I don't know whether that's been correct, that I see a couple streets now, they got no parking. I'm assuming they're gonna finish the bituminous on those streets, but Third Street is one, I saw no parking signs. And
Yeah, we're hoping for this next week with them.
Okay. All right, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to chew on you.
That's all right, that's all right.
But,
I got big shoulders.
well, I know, but what else there is? Okay, that's all right, I got my,
Okay, policy you deal with, staff deals with the policy, how you schedule employees, it is what it is, they're entitled to time off. You do what you best you can to schedule employees the way it is. But I want to get back to the budget portion of it. I just want to have one question before we go to Counselor Paulson, in that you have the total, your capital outlay, and this is part of the budget to try to get back into a program where you have equipment that you can operate, that you don't have to manufacture parts for, which you have had to do on a number of occasions. And it's embarrassing, really, because those parts don't last very long, and you spend more time trying to manufacture parts than if you had a piece of equipment that worked right the first time. So when you have a capital outlay of $421,720, that is your request for capital outlay for 2023. A portion, if not all of that, is going to be potentially part of that equipment bond, part of the vehicle replacement schedule. You inherited a fleet of antiquated pieces of equipment. And the previous Public Works Director did the same thing, trying to get this equipment moving forward. And it's a legacy challenge from way back when those wasn't done. And so because this equipment is so expensive, because the budget is so finite, that you try to work within that budget to move forward. And we as a council, as an elected body, have to find some creative ways in which to ensure that you get the equipment you need to do the work that you need to do. So as part of this budget on the capital outlay, my question to you is, the $421,720 for budget year 2023, you're comfortable with those equipment needs moving forward for 2023, and then you'll be submitting some additional for 2024, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
I know you have a 10-year lease, so thank you. Thank you, Jim. Councilor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. I just have one quick question under the unemployment compensation line item. Last year it budgeted 14,675.0 in 23. Is that due to you
COVID.
don't-
1 week for a load.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so then there's not going to be an anticipation of that for this year.
I sure hope not.
Thank you. Thanks, Sherry.
Thank you. Councilor Johnson.
So I appreciate you coming forward, and, it's one of those things that we see every day. We see the old green trucks and the old orange trucks. And I guess what I want to know is, what can we do immediately to help the staff that are working in the buildings? Like, one of the things that we did in the last year or two was get the computer upgrade. Like, that was, I think that we did that right when you were coming on. And it was one of those things that nobody had said, hey, we need this. So I would ask that you talk to your, and I'm sure you do, but I'm really encourage you to ask those folks that are working at Public Works, in a perfect world, what are some simple things that we can do that can be bought to make their lives easier, like this computerized system? I mean, I know we've changed some of the staffing, so the ability to attain parts and stuff, in my understanding, has gotten less complicated. And those are the kinds of things, for efficiency's sake and for morale, that I hope that we continue to do down there, especially in Public Works, because they seem to be the forgotten department. I mean, the fire department has big red flashy lights, and the police department does, and and there's a bunch of orange trucks that go out and make our streets better and dig in sewers, and so I want to try to figure out how in the budget we can take care of some of those little things, and then really look at those buildings, as the mayor alluded to, and what would it take? Can we create some efficiencies by creating a safer, newer workspace? What does that look like in a perfect world? And then my question would be for Britt and Sherry, is that a capital outlay, a new garage? I mean, is that something we should be looking at as we move forward for bonding and that kind of stuff?
It is something we should definitely put in the 10-year capital outlay. Like Jim mentioned, the equipment is priority at this moment because that is direct efficiency of the staff. But we should look at doing something to those buildings down there. I mean, he'll tell you stories that the walls flap in the winter in the building that they're storing stuff in. So it's interesting.
Because it would also be, we're being preventative too. That's the one word I learned that's a dirty word as a city councilor is this deferred maintenance. We always will put it off, and then all of a sudden the building's going to collapse, and now instead of having one broken, we have 6 broken pieces of machinery and shards of glass and everything, and I just don't want us to get there. We need to be really looking at that. I know our mechanics are the top of the line, and they do magic things. Brian was just here last week telling us how long our golf carts have lasted because of what they do down there. And I think sometimes I would encourage you to make your stuff a priority. Like, there might be some times where you just have to say, we need to do this, and just have that discussion too. Thanks, Jim.
Okay, thank you. Just have one, I know it's kind of on the tangents of the budget, but it was part of the discussion. So for me, and for the public's edification, when they say, oh, now the city's looking at building a new public works garage, how come they're not going to fix our streets? Valid point about the streets, and that's a huge challenge for us, and we're working on that, hopefully, trying to do the best we can with the money that we're able to allocate for that or glean from it. But it's when I saw the mechanics, we all saw the mechanics laying on the floor in the dirt trying to fix a piece of equipment a few years ago and not complaining one iota, which is a dangerous situation. And what did we do? Public Works came and says, we can't do this anymore. How can you do? So we bought those airlifts, which should have been done a long time ago to help the safety and the efficiency and the ability and the working conditions of that environment. That's probably the only new piece of equipment you've had in there for 25 years. And then when I'm down at the back garage talking about, with the press about the loon going down to the fair, and as it's pouring rain out, and we're talking inside the building and trying to take pictures, they're trying to, interview a couple of your staff. Pretty soon, all of a sudden, the rain comes pouring into the garage itself. Water's, a foot deep. I had to go out to my car, get my mucks out of there in order to keep, because it was flooding out. You can't work under those conditions. So just for the public's edification, we've got to start looking at a working environment that's amenable like we are with our other entities. So thank you for that. Anybody else have anything before we move on? Councilor Bearable.
I just want to bring up one quick thing, and it's kind of related, but it isn't. Jim and I and Matt Reed are going out on the 15th of September to look at every street in the city of Virginia and prioritize for the next round after this one is done in '24. So yeah, it's going to be a fun project. We did this for this project, and we're going to do it again for the next one, and that's on the 15th at 10 o'clock in the morning. And we're going to hit every street between Midway and every street in Virginia. Let's put it that way, and we'll write them down, and then we'll put a list of where we're going with the next 13 or 20 streets.
I have one question before I let you go. I'll talk to you after about it. It's a question about the street and when it's going to open up. Jim, thank you very much. This budget is a significant one. With the 3 major parts of our budget is huge expenditures and huge challenges in your Department of Public Works. So thanks, Jim, for taking on those responsibilities moving forward. So we're all appreciative of all our department heads, and we have to be cognizant of what your needs are with respect to the budget, and also balance that with the levy portion of the budget that's being proffered by our staff and how we're going to move forward with that too. So that's a huge decision we have to make, and hopefully not try to compromise so much of the services that we provide. So thanks a bunch, Jim. Appreciate it very much. Okay, anybody else have any other department head that's here? No? Okay, Sherry, we should probably, go ahead. We should probably go through some of these other things as well.
Correct. Why don't we move on to general government, right after the community development, permitting and planning.
General government? Mm-hmm. Okay, I'm there.
Because I believe City Hall is in there. And we just got an estimate on that. And it's over $3 million to fix City Hall and have that, HVAC, and the building itself. And I see Wendy's in the audience, and she can attest to the snow drifts that come through her window in the accounting office.
Kind of back up a little bit on what Sherry was saying. Remember a few months ago, we had Bill Cole, Matt right here talking about if we were to put an HVAC system on the second floor, so we had actual air conditioning and not the window units, and if we upgraded all the windows. So we had the firm look at what it would take to do that. It did take them this long to get pricing for this stuff. And so for them to upgrade our HVAC system so that there's actually a system here on second floor and above, and to replace all the windows at City Hall, it would be $3 million is the estimated dollar amount. That is not in the budget for next year. What is in the budget for next year is the roof, which we do know is leaking, and we have patched it as best as we can, but Nelson Roofing has warned us when they patched it, this patch is not going to hold for longer than a couple of years. You need to replace your roof. So as part of the bond for next year that we want to do, the City Hall roof is in that bond for 300, is it 3 something? It's a little more than $300,000.
Okay, well,
And somewhere in that 10-year capital outlay, while we're working on the Public Works building, we need to look at City Hall building too.
sure,
So
yeah, agreed.
whatever that be, whatever year that is, but
Yeah, and we'll have to make some tough decisions as we move forward. I know the windows in City Hall, particularly for the employees are, with the wind coming through, I don't have to even, the mayor's office, they don't even open up the windows in the wintertime, or in the summertime. When the wind blows hard enough, it automatically opens the window. So I duct tape it all together, and I'm fine with that. I think our other city offices, but I know we have to look at that bit, so thank you. Okay, please continue, Sherry.
Sure. I guess I would like to ask the mayor and the council, if you look under your second page of expenses, where it says general government, if there's any department there that you want to look at, let me know. It's pretty standard based on the contract language and what their pay increases will be. And then under miscellaneous at the bottom of that page, is there any issues that you see? Economic development, we set aside $100,000. Contingency fund, we have set aside 153, well, actually 183,000. 30 of that will go to our trails. 10,000 of that will go to lighting. And Britt, I don't know if you want to talk about the lights. I believe that's your Christmas lights, correct?
The Christmas lights was a result of a
That last one.
$5,000 donation by a private citizen.
we're done with that.
We're done with that.
And then Lakes Beautification Trail Fund, that's been, that was a resolution made by Councilor Sipola a while back, that $20,000 be set aside into that fund. So is there any questions on that miscellaneous?
I have a question.
Please, Counselor Paulson.
Thank you. On the Teen Lyric Center improvements, are they buying, so does that need to stay in there?
It might not need to stay in there. They are working on a 12-month plan to take ownership of it, but we had committed from a couple meetings, it was about a year ago, actually, the council directed us to start putting in some money aside to update these things that they need.
Right.
So we may not spend that.
Okay, that's just,
Yep, and if we don't, then it just sits in the contingency until we use it for something else.
and you know what, I hate to go back because Brian and Jim aren't here, but I do have a couple questions that if I may, or is that
please do.
appropriate time to do it now?
Go ahead.
Okay. So I'm on it would be the park budget, And then it says, it's kind of like I don't know, the pages are confusing to me. It says page 2, but it's not necessarily, a bunch of them say page 2. But it says, Sherry, capital outlay other, $350,000. And then in the red, you've got the Groundmaster 3,200 lawnmowers, Ranger pickup truck with plow, tandem dump, truck with plow, trail upgrades, 150,000, and then playground equipment. But if I look on the 10-year capital outlay sheet in the in the email, it says under golf course and clubhouse, $200,000, and that's a Real Master spreader, golf carts, and kitchen equipment. And then under park and recreation, it's a Ranger vehicle, playground equipment, park construction, $250,000. So is it 350 or 250, or should it be 450?
You've got two different, you've got golf.
Right?
That's not park. That's separate.
The 10-year capital outlay is the one that's incorrect. That one should be 350.
Yes.
Under park and recreation.
Yes. Yep.
It should
That
say
should be,
350.
that line should be 350,000.
So on that spreadsheet with the 10-year capital outlay, that should be adjusted to 350.
Okay, that's
I
fine.
apologize, yep.
No, that's okay. I'm just trying to understand, because then I'm not finding under the golf course where I get the spreader, I think that's on here. Golf carts, what are we doing with the kitchen equipment? Well, and I'd like to know how much that is, break that out. What is the cost of the spreader? The golf carts, we just, oh, do you have more goodies? Yep, I pulled it, but I couldn't find on here at all.
We should get that answered from,
Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't notice it when Brian was here, so.
let's ask Brian those questions and see if he could find those answers for us.
But I guess the problem that I have is we're subsidizing the golf course a large amount, and I'm concerned that we're adding $200,000 in the budget for Real Master spreader, I don't know what that is, golf carts and kitchen equipment, and there's no real breakout that I could see in our enterprise fund in our book here, unless it's broken out in what you just handed us, Sherry.
So
Gary, could you,
do you want to stay in Park and Rec, or do you want to move over to the golf course? And then there's a separate restaurant.
Well, I think the park and rec is cleared up, it's just a typo on, it should be 350 to match what the budget is.
Yep,
And
that
then,
is.
so I
if you
guess
live
on
in
the golf
park.
course and clubhouse at 200,000, what is the breakdown and what is specifically the kitchen equipment?
How much is the spreader? How much is the kitchen equipment? And how much is the golf carts? What did you budget for each of those three things?
Okay, I budgeted for the golf course. We have $80,000 in there for carts, which
And we just
probably
spent,
is
though,
low.
we just spent 71 this
Yes,
year.
but we have
That's
25
only
carts.
10
Oh,
carts.
35 carts. We just bought 10 of the 35 that we need to, the remaining 25 need to be replaced. Our last cart purchase was in 2012,
12?
correct. And so some of the carts we have are 1999, which would be the beverage carts and the four-person carts.
And as Brian indicated, the average replacement of carts is between 5 and 7 years.
So Sherry, that's a capital outlay under other? The 80,000?
In the golf course. See that?
Yeah, but it just says other, so that's why it's confusing. You don't know what the item is for. So we should say capital outlay golf carts.
Well, for our next budget meeting, you should probably have it broken down for us, if you could.
Yeah, I just don't want to add another line item. That line,
That in the red on the side, like you
Oh,
did in the other ones,
okay.
if you just put down how much was the spreader, how much is the golf carts, and then.
But that's 80,000 just for golf carts, so where's the kitchen equipment and this spreader then?
I do not have kitchen equipment or spreader in the restaurant or the golf cart. So
So
that,
that's 200,000 minus 80 is $120,000 that we don't know what we're allocating that for in that budget. I'm concerned about that.
Well, I think we should get a breakdown as you requested, Councilor Paulson, with respect to those things. And Brian could provide the information with regarding the spreader. And we could get the information about, is this kitchen equipment, maintenance of the kitchen equipment, or if it's a replacement of the kitchen equipment?
Replacement, it's
Yeah.
a discussion we need to have, and we can get Ken, the maintenance man, here too, to talk about
Yeah.
what he's seeing up there, so we can.
Yeah, I know
discuss it.
Curtis was very concerned about the condition of some of the equipment, but we need to get the cost breakdown of actually three different areas: the golf course, park and rec, and the restaurant. So those are three different sets of proposals that are rolled into one cost. So if we could get a breakdown of that.
Correct.
Is that what you're asking for,
I see that
Councilor
the capital outlay was changed from my capital outlay, so we'll get it updated.
Councilor Paulson?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's just helpful in determining, approving the budget. We just need to know where the expenditure is going. And then, for me, it's a larger part of the conversation with how much are we going to continue to subsidize the golf course, specifically the restaurant aspect of that. So I want to know how much is this, is it maintenance or is it a whole new piece of equipment? And I thought we just, before the, when we switched over to the new tenant, I thought we just put a new piece of equipment in there, and I don't remember
I don't remember which one it was, and I will get that information.
what piece of equipment it was, right, okay. So my concern is just continuously subsidizing, is golf carts necessary if the golf course is in the hole? Like, I mean, somebody has to justify that to me. So that's where I'm coming from. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Councilor Paulson. So I'd like to get back to the topic that we're on, if we could. It's the City of Virginia general government. That's what we're talking about now. And so we're looking at that. If you asked if we had any question or comments about that, I do. The $3 million for that's something we have to talk about. But I do know that I do see that in the 2023 budget is budgeted the City Hall for a new roof at a cost of $260,000, and I do believe that has to stay in there because the leaks that are being generated are going to creating a myriad of problems for the City Hall and the structure from above, and so that has to stay in there. And I think we do at the very least. I know the City Hall needs a significant amount of upgrades, but we need to keep it dry in here and secure it. So I think that's an appropriate expenditure for capital for the City Hall itself.
Correct, and the $3 million was just a discussion for you guys
Right.
to get you the information that we
Yeah.
do now have that dollar amount, so somewhere in the back of our mind, we need to keep in mind that we need to, if we want to do these upgrades to City Hall, we need to.
Sure,
figure out what we're doing.
and I appreciate it, but I just wanted to point out the city expenditure that we really do need to put a new roof on there because of the significant issues we've had moving forward. So, Councilor Bearable, you had your hand up? Okay, very good, all right. Okay, thank you. So anything else on city government? Councilor Johnson?
Thank you, Mayor. When our technology that we utilize as counselors is becoming antiquated, and we're several of us are struggling with updates and that kind of stuff. Is there a possibility we can look at upgrading our equipment, and what would that look like?
Yes, and part of it is you have to be here to update your computer because we
Yep.
need you on the network. So we have a lot of those counselors that aren't doing that correctly. So yes, it is in the plan, it's in the 10-year capital outlay. There's a large data processing over the
Okay,
years, yes.
okay, because mine lives here, and it still doesn't like all the time, so
They
I
are
just want to
finicky.
make sure as we are moving forward, technology has changed, but our surfaces have not,
Yeah.
for the most part. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, anything else regarding the City of Virginia expenditure, the budget for the city? Councilor Bearable?
I just want to tack on to Counselor Johnson's. Britt, I don't have, when we need to do updates, when I pull mine up at home, it comes right back to here, and it asks me if I want to do these updates or not. Now, doesn't everybody have that capability when they're home? So you don't have to be in-house here?
But if you don't have really good Wi-Fi, probably not. You probably should
Pardon?
not do that. If you don't have good Wi-Fi, you probably should not do that update at home.
I have good Wi-Fi, so.
You do, so you're doing fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks, Chief. Okay, thank you. So as we move through the city expenditure budgets, Sherry, anything else that, I know we budgeted for most of this last year in the various areas, so I don't see anything glaring other than the new roof for the city hall, which I think is imperative that we have that done. We've delayed that for a number of years, and now it's becoming a problem, particularly after looking at the police garage and the roof and all that kind of stuff moving forward. So I think that's unfortunately necessary. So anybody else? Sherry, anything else that you want to point out to the audience and to the general public listening and to the rest of the council?
Well, I just wanted to say, circle back on the levy. The levy that we're proposing is an additional $228,000. And hopefully you folks who have been listening understand that's a drop in the bucket. It really is for the services that the city provides.
And the majority of this levy increase is going to be a result of a large portion of that is as we move forward with our labor costs over the next year. There's some, I know you budgeted some increases potentially, anticipating some for labor and the cost of our health insurance moving up. So there's a significant portion of that as part of this levy increase. Is that correct or not correct?
That is, unfortunately, given inflation, the cost of items is,
Yeah.
I can't keep up with it.
All right, thank you.
I do want to say, though, on a positive note, that if you go into the debt service section, two of those bonds on the top there, the 2008A and the equipment bond that we had in 2012, they will be dropping off in February of next year. So the proposed that I got from George Eilertson for the new equipment bond, the amount that we paid out there would actually be less with this bond.
Yeah, so if you look at the top of the page, our debt services, the Recreation City Hall, the 2008 A bond of 171,444, is that dropping off? And the second bond, the Geo Series 2012A, the charter equipment bond, that's dropping off.
Correct.
Thank you.
You'll see it's outstanding at the end of the year. For 2023, there's zero.
Thank you. Councilor Paulson?
Thank you, Mayor. Sherry, on the SRO from the school district, is that the funds that are coming forward from Rock Ridge, from ISD 2909 for a .5 SRO officer?
Under the revenue page where it's
Under the other
highlighted in
revenues.
red. Yeah, and as you see, I left it the same as this year. I have no clue where that's going. I understand it's still under negotiation.
Yeah, the school board plans to approve that at their next meeting.
So how would that impact if they decide to go with a full-time SRO? That would basically take one of our officers completely off.
We would have to have a
We'd be
conversation.
getting paid for it, but,
Yeah,
okay.
because then Officer Swanson is our SRO, and
Right.
he does a lot of community resource stuff, so we'd have
Right.
to figure out who's going to do community resource stuff if he's doing school stuff, so it would be a discussion. So what they're talking about with right now is the school has actually reached out to Evelyn and Gilbert and asked if they would fill in the other days that Swenson is not there, one of those two police departments, so that there's always an
Okay.
SRO, but
Okay.
not necessarily our SRO.
So keeping that status quo should be fine.
It should be fine, and Officer Swanson does want to keep doing the community relations stuff because it is very important.
Absolutely.
And so it would be a really nice thing if the other cities could help out too.
Okay,
on that
thank
side.
you.
And as with other discussions that are ongoing, this is another, with respect to a participation from the other cities, so thank you. Councilor Johnson?
Thank you. I'm looking at the animal control. Are we in a contract, a multi-year contract with them at this time?
Yes.
Because,
The agreement is in your.
yeah, because it just, if, it's one of those things that it just feels like we're not getting what we're paying for when it comes to them. And I understand that they utilize it and what they do and what, but we're supposed to have an animal control officer. And I don't know that we have one other than one of the employees or volunteers that drives around. And a lot of times, it's a phone call, 911 dispatches an officer, our officer, they go pick up Fido, and they bring him and put him in the cage until one of the volunteers comes to feed. So, and I know comes up every time we have the contract, but, you know, I value what they do. Both of my dogs, all of my dogs have been rescues, but I want to make sure that we're getting our needs met and they're getting their needs met at the same time. Thank you.
And just to tack on what you said, Councilor Johnson, we need to invite the animal control people to come here and explain. We get, I don't even think we get quarterly reports with respect to that, and the reports that I do get doesn't seem to justify the amount of money that we're giving them moving forward. I know it's an animal issue, so I think what I'd like to see is them to come in and give us a little presentation. It's a total of $46,254, so. And I don't know, maybe things have changed, but, and it's been a long time now, but we would not allow, based on health reports, because we don't know what kind of dog you're picking up, that the police department should be throwing a dog in the back of their squad car when they're hauling prisoners as well, because you don't know what disease that dog may or may not be carrying, and they're not prepared for that. So, but they go beyond that in order to accomplish that. So I think that's a goal and objective of us to have somebody from animal control come in and speak. So I would ask that our next budget meeting, that we have somebody from animal control come in and give us something in person. Councilor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. I don't mean to jump all around, but just got a couple questions on the Tennis for All building.
Okay, let's move on to that one next then.
Do you mind?
No, let's go.
Okay. On the resurfacing of the outdoor courts, we did that last year, and then we're doing it again this year. Is that
It's actually, we're saving up money we were dedicating money for 3 years to get to next year, where we will have enough. We expect it to be almost $90,000.
Okay.
So
we're
been
just
putting money
setting the
aside.
money aside. Oops, sorry.
Yeah,
So we're
setting money
setting the
aside.
money aside for 2024? But I mean for resurfacing.
In '23.
Oh, in
23 will be the last year of us setting the money aside.
Okay.
So they have enough money now, and actually, Dave just came in to tell me that we should go out for bids now because they're scheduling now for spring. So we are going to come to you soon and ask you for permission to go out for bids for that. If the
Perfect.
council is amicable, we've been budgeting for the last 2 years. It's time for us next year to get this done.
Okay, and then one last item, if I may, Mayor.
Sure,
and I
please
think I'm
do.
done,
Please do.
Is the garbage truck for $250,000, that will be going on the capital equipment bond, is that correct? Okay. And then on, Sherry, of the last year, what was our levy? Was it
3%.
3%.
Was it 3%? So we're going up to 4.5. But last year, most cities had a really severe increase, and ours, we really didn't. So does that lessen the blow a little bit, just for the
Do we have some
general edification?
pandemic money too? Do we have some government money to use too as well?
We did obviously have some pandemic money that we used to help offset some of the EMS personnel and COVID expenses. This year and next year, we will have some rescue funds, but they're specifically targeted for certain items that will help offset. But I can't budget it, per se.
But overall, 4.5% it's the minimum, it's the least we can.
I had it at
Manage.
6, so.
Well, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Of course, this is the first budget meeting. There are going to be many to follow. So as we go through this, and we're going to have a lot more questions and have maybe some more presentations, you know, there may be some areas there where we as a elected body might want to defer or not fund or whatever the case may be. But I think the budget, as much as we'd like to see a zero levy, as much as we'd like to see a -5 levy, the issue for us is we have to operate the city moving forward, and we have to have the trust and faith in our staff that they're providing, you know, what their needs are. And our job is to determine what their needs are, what their wants are, and how to budget that over time. This 10-year capital equipment bond proposal is very important. We've done it before. Other cities do it throughout the state of Minnesota, particularly the cities or more of the size of 5,000 or more. So I think we're doing yeoman's work about this. I would encourage the general public that if they have any questions, comments, or concerns, they want to copy this budget, want to take a look at it, you can look at it online, or I'll put the burden on our city clerk, Pamela Bean. If you have any, if you want a copy sent to you, just call Pam. The number is 218-749-3579. That's 218-749-3579, and she'll provide you what you need. So, and also all the other counselors and elected body are available as well. So, thank you. Anything else to come before the budget meeting today? Councilor Baraboo?
I have one question that needs to be asked, okay? With all those proposed bonds that we're looking at for equipment bonds, other bonds and stuff, my understanding is that stuff that's stalled in legislation of the state, with all these bonds, we're going to exceed our capacity, correct, with what we're proposing? How are we going to get around that, or are we not going to exceed our
Not
capacity?
exceed our capacity. If
How is that possible?
in 2023, the equipment bond or charter bond that we want to do is not subject to debt limitations.
It's not subject to it, even though we
Because we
have
will
to
do a
pay for
bank,
it?
a bank qualified bond, which is, it has to be
Okay.
$10 million or less. You can do that once a year, up to $10 million.
Oh, okay, so there's an exception to what we're looking at.
There's an exception, and
But for
because of what
long-
we're
but-
purchasing, it doesn't have to be subject to our debt levy.
Okay.
The building, the Public Safety Center will have to be subject to our debt levy unless we do an HRA bond for that building, which means a higher interest rate. We're talking 5%, 6% interest rate.
And we still got the clinic stuck on that
We still have the
one.
clinic stuck on that similar bond type. So we were really hoping the legislature meets and doesn't require us to do that higher interest rate bond. We want to go with our lower bond rating interest
So
rate.
if they get this passed where we can increase our debt levy, then we don't
Then
have
we
the
can get the
higher.
lower interest rate
rate,
bond. It
okay.
would just be an interest rate reduction, which would be helpful for everybody.
I just needed clarification on that.
Yeah, no, thank you.
Thanks.
That's a very good question. Yeah, if, as long as it's an equipment bond or a charter bond and it's under $10 million, we can do that after the first of the year.
And what has helped us, and thank you, Sherry, that we did get that additional money under local government aid, an increase of almost $200,000 in our local government aid as that formula came moving forward. So that helps the debt levy as well. So thank you very much. Councilor Johnson?
Just because I have a terrible memory, did we ever get a check for the bridge? Okay, thank you.
Too bad we haven't yet, right? Okay, thank you.
Oh, that check, when we got that money, we put it back. We had borrowed money from ourselves, so we paid back ourselves with that fund.
And we got it all back, less the interest we had to pay, right? So still sticks in my craw. Okay. Anything else in the first preliminary budget meeting that's being presented today? Any other questions, comments, or concerns from the council? And anything from staff? Okay, you'll let us know maybe when it's amenable to schedule the next budget meeting?
Yeah, I will. I will talk to Brian and see Fingers, and we'll see when we can get them here to talk about golf information as well.
I think golf, restaurant, the animal control, other things as well, people who have not had the opportunity to present today.
Very
So
good.
thank you. If there's nothing, Councilor Bearable.
Just one quick comment here that I really appreciate what the staff did with presenting the written form of this. It's hard to read on the computer, and I really appreciate all the work you've done. This is probably in all the years I've been on, this is the format that I like the best, what you've done the last number of years. So thank you very much, staff, and you too, Mayor.
And thank you for condensing this book from needing a trolley to carry it back and forth to the office. So you've condensed it significantly, so thanks for that. Anything else to come before the special council meeting today with respect to the budget? Hearing and seeing none, we'll stand adjourned at 10:29 a.m. Thank you, everybody. Stand adjourned.